This video contains content that may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. White people covering for each other, that is nothing new. But here in the new millennium, they are starting to get exposed for it. And since they are getting exposed for it, I feel as if these two people should be in prison the way they covered for the Mcmichaels when they murdered Ahmaud Arbery. These little small-time towns in Georgia are nothing but a redneck clique. It's a small town. They all know each other. They all run for these little offices, and they all hire their friends, regardless of their qualifications. Your president, Donald Trump, said that he is going to drain the swamps. These small redneck towns where you have a history of racism, unsolved murders of black people. You people are now going to be exposed, and you are going to pay for the crimes that you've committed.
Georgia's Attorney General requested the GBI investigate whether two district attorneys broke state law in their handling of Ahmaud Arbery's case.
Some questions have been raised regarding the communications and or actions of the original district attorney who recused and then the first appointed district attorney. And so we asked the U.S. Attorney's Office to investigate. That would come from a federal angle to make sure that federal law was followed. The GBI would be specifically looking at it from a state angle.
What that sounds like to me is that you are going to go through these law books with a fine-tooth comb to find a way, a loophole, to get these DAs and the Mcmichaels off the hook. And I think you're going to use this new DA, the new judge, because one thing about black people, they do study and they know the law. So I'm quite sure that she's going to find some loophole in the law that gives these people the right to do what they did. Because one thing about these people, they always have an exit plan.
The first district attorney involved in the case was Jackie Johnson. One of the men charged with murdering Arbery is a former chief investigator in her office. Glynn County officials say before she recused herself from the case, her office advised officers not to arrest the Mcmichaels because they were, quote, not a flight risk. Johnson denies those claims. It's also worth noting she did not recuse herself until 4 days after the deadly shooting. In a letter to the GBI director, Attorney General Carr said he also has concerns about the district attorney he assigned to the Arbery case next, George Barnhill. In his letter, he says Barnhill also advised Glynn County Police not to arrest the Mcmichaels before he was assigned the case. The Attorney General also said not long after Mr. Barnhill was appointed as prosecutor, Barnhill learned of a potential conflict of interest. His son, an ADA with District Attorney Johnson's office, had worked with Greg Mcmichael before on a prosecution involving Ahmaud Arbery. But according to the Attorney General, Barnhill held on to the case for several more weeks after making the discovery.
We must get to the bottom of it. We must determine the facts.
Attorney General Chris Carr says the state didn't become aware of this cell phone video until after it was released anonymously by a Brunswick attorney.
I was stunned. I was shocked when I saw it. I'm a father. I'm a fellow human being. And the first thing I thought, the initial reaction is that's not our Georgia. Those aren't the values that we believe in.
Within 36 hours of the video's release, investigators had done what officers to that point had failed to do in the months since the shooting. They arrested the Mcmichaels for felony murder of Ahmaud Arbery.
And when you look at the actions of the state, as we were made aware of this, it shows the importance and how we believe that no stone can be left unturned. This is a critically important moment, and the state of Georgia is showing how important it is to us that we've uncovered the facts.
Georgia has always had a racial problem towards black people. America has always had a racial problem towards black Americans. What happened to Mr. Arbery has been going on in Georgia for years. And out in the open, yes, they'll holler about how they are not racist. But behind the scenes, what do they say?
Because an unspoken ban on black people was, all at once, being exposed, challenged, and proudly defended.
My name's Frank Shirley. I'm the head of the Committee to Keep Forsyth and Dawson County white. There were thousands of white people that came out to join our white people's protest.
In 1987, race and class divisions erupted as African-American leaders and their supporters tried to march through Forsyth County, Georgia, an area just 40 miles north of Atlanta.
The killing of 4 people, all black, near Monroe, Georgia. 68 years on, the 1946 lynching at the Moores Ford Bridge is still unsolved, the last unsolved mass lynching in America. George and May Murray Dorsey, Roger and Dorothy Malcolm, 7 months pregnant, ambushed, tied to trees, then shot and killed by a mob of white men.
They went through a living hell back when.
The investigation turned up some evidence, but no arrests. It's still considered an open case. Civil rights activists are calling for congressional hearings.
If we resolve this case, it's going to make a big difference.
Cops killing blacks in Georgia, that's been going on for years. And people say, oh, he's not a cop. Well, he was a former cop. See, at first they were using the regular police officers. And so then now they're calling these retired cops back to duty. I guess this is their way of going out in a blaze of glory, doing it for the cause. Years ago, I was watching Family Feud, and one of the questions they asked was, which job has the most liars? And the number one answer was police officers. Police officers are good at lying. And when they try to say how they care about black people, I know that is a damn lie.
So what I think we're going to see, if we haven't already seen it already, is all of these defendants who, if he was involved in their case, all are going to have the right to come back into court and say, wait a minute, I want my case looked at again because he was involved with it and he had no lawful authority to do what he was doing. A lot of it's going to depend upon how much involvement he had in each one of the cases.
Now that is some somewhat good news. All of the people that have been arrested by this guy, the Mcmichaels, you have a chance to get that case thrown out. These 2 bumbling rednecks, they're going to cost this town of its survival, because look at the potential lawsuits that's going to be coming up. What about the cases that are going to be thrown out? Because this guy had no business being a damn cop or even being anywhere around the courthouse.
Gregory Mcmichael has been the chief investigator under DA Jackie Johnson for more than 20 years. Personnel records from 2014 show for at least 8 years, Mcmichael was acting as an investigator with no arrest powers due to a lack of training. The executive director of Georgia's Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, Mike Ayers, says it means he couldn't apply for orders of arrest warrants, search warrants, or conduct arrests under the color of the law.
Essentially, that individual at that point in time has no more authority to exercise restraint or control over another individual than any other citizen would have.
A letter in Mcmichael's personnel records state the office learned Mcmichael was behind on his training hours in April of 2014. The memo states he knew he was behind on hours, but recently discovered he had not had arrest powers since 2006. It had been 8 years. A staff member wrote, until his arrest powers are restored, he has to hand over his badge, any identification cards identifying him as a deputy sheriff or district attorney's office investigator, and his department-issued firearm. After the revelation, Mcmichael went before the Georgia Post Council and was granted a waiver, allowing him to stay on as a full-time investigator. His boss, DA Jackie Johnson, spoke in front of the council on his behalf, writing in a letter that the situation had, quote, negatively impacted my office. Personnel files show Mcmichael for years was behind on governor-mandated training hours for de-escalation, community-oriented policing, and use of force.
Those particular classes are critically important, especially when you look at terms like situations like de-escalation. How do you keep a situation from getting out of hand, which is potentially what you're looking at specifically in this situation. Now, at that point in time, they were not acting as law enforcement officers, but had he been a law enforcement officer at that time, de-escalation training certainly speaks to that whole issue.
The former law enforcement officer retired from the office in 2019. Personnel files obtained by the News4Jax I-Team today show in 2014, Chief Investigator Greg Mcmichael and his boss, DA Jackie Johnson, learned he was not properly certified to be a law enforcement officer after failing to maintain annual training hours with Georgia Post. That's the agency that certifies all law enforcement officers in the state. Specifically, Mcmichael lacked firearms qualification and use of deadly force courses. A memo inside his files show Mcmichael said he knew he had been behind in hours, but recently discovered that he had not had arrest powers since January 2006. In the 2014 letter about the situation, an investigator told DA Jackie Johnson, quote, in 3 of the years listed, Greg failed to qualify or have the use of force training, and that because he had not had arrest powers since 2006, liability of improper actions by Greg would fall on him, the district attorney's office, and you personally, referring to DA Jackie Johnson. Mcmichael told investigators the lapse in training was due to 2 heart attacks, his wife's cancer, and a subsequent bankruptcy over medical bills. Mcmichael was ultimately granted a waiver from Georgia Post after Jackie Johnson personally addressed the council on his behalf. After Post granted the waiver, Johnson wrote the director saying, "This situation has been a great embarrassment to me and investigator Mcmichael and had negatively impacted her office." Personnel files show that ultimately in 2018, he had another issue with missed training hours. Post issued Mcmichael an emergency suspension. They pulled his certification, took his badge, gun, and police car, and he was reassigned to desk duty at the Camden DA's office. He worked there for months until he retired in 2019.
You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. All of these revelations that are coming to light, I don't get too excited about it because this is the old buddy system. And I'm quite sure they are trying to come up with some type of plan, some loophole to get these people off. And really, if this stuff is going to stop, we as black people, we have to stand up more. And we have to stay standing up. And we have to stand on what the hell we believe in. We just cannot let things like this happen and we get mad about it for a few days and go it on. We need to keep beating these damn drums and letting these people know that we do not appreciate what is going on. And if they don't stop what they're doing, there will be an or else. I'm quite sure that they don't want that. But what other alternatives do you leave us when an ex-cop and his son murders a black man and the DA blocks his arrest? And this same DA has the nerve and the gall to say that this has been a great embarrassment to me and my investigator, Mr. Mcmichael. It has negatively impacted my office, and I have taken measures to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Here come the Becketeers. That thug with a badge, Mcmichael, he began his career as a peace officer with the Glenn County Police Department. This was back in 1982. And 7 years later, he resigned and began to work as a peace officer with the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. What is his arrest records in Glenn County and with the Brunswick Police Department? Let's see here. He started with the Glenn County Police Department. Then he worked for the Brunswick Police Department. Then he went back to Glenn County as a sheriff. Left there October 31st, 1995, and the very next day, he started to work for the Brunswick Judicial Circuit as a peace officer. When he retired from this job, I wonder, was it because the heat was on about his certifications? So they say, hey man, we're going to go and retire you before we have to fire you, and then you won't get no type of pension. As I said earlier, I hope they all get at least a life sentence. The DAs and the Mcmichaels, as well as that damn cameraman. See, white people, they've been watching television, and they've been looking at the type of black people that the media puts in front of the camera. The type of black men that hang around Donald Trump. The type of black men that would join an all-white police department. But there are many faces to black people. And if you people think about following the path of the Mcmichaels, hey man, I think that you people are going to have a rude awakening. And I'm quite sure there are some black people that welcome this. I think that they are looking for this opportunity to show you that, hey, I'm not a pushover. America, it is a ticking time bomb. I mean, I don't think it's going to take much for America to blow up. It is not going to take much for black people to blow up. And if the world, especially America, if you think about that you're going to eliminate black people or use these, because I've been seeing a lot of military vehicles on the train tracks driving through black neighborhoods. That will not intimidate us. And if you think about using your tanks and your drones against us, it will mean destruction for America. I've been noticing on YouTube, they've been taking down some of my videos. I think one got flagged. I know how white people feel when I post my videos. I hate you! For all of the white people that say that they do not dislike black people. I have black friends. I am not racist. What I say is good. If there's your take on this whole matter of racism, That is all good. So get the hell out of the way. Because we are not focused on the white people that say they have black friends and they like black people. We are focused on the ones that don't. Here it is. We are actually at war. And while we are at war, in battle, you have someone jumping in front of you hollering about, I like black people. That is how these so-called nice white people protect the bad ones. So if you're on the side of black people, good. Just move the hell out of the way so that we can see the ones who do not like us.